Inside the tunnel, Dongwook faces a giant ant and wonders if it might be a royal guard of the queen. He knows these ants are as strong as S-rank hunters, but in the end, they are just beasts. The huge ant lunges at him, hitting his shield, and Dongwook notes that unlike hunters, who use different battle strategies, the ant's attacks are simple. Suddenly, Hae-in jumps from behind him, slamming her sword down while in midair. Her blade pierces the ant's head, and as she lands on the sword's handle, she slices through its entire body. Another giant ant rushes at her, but with one swift motion, she cuts off its head. She comments that their bodies are tougher than she expected. Dongwook thinks these royal guards are different from normal ants, but feels relieved there aren't too many of them. Byung-gyu reassures everyone that there's no need to worry since he's there to support them. Baek hears this and jokes that Byung-gyu is not as scared as he used to be. Byung-gyu fires back, telling Baek to stop acting like an amateur, then smashes an ant with his weapon. He explains that even if they crush an ant's skull, it can still live for a while, so they need to cut off its limbs or finish it properly. Baek agrees and remembers Byung-gyu's advice. He realizes that while the queen isn't here, her royal guards are, and they seem to be from an older generation. He guesses that they were cast out, meaning there might be newer, stronger guards waiting for them ahead. Byung-gyu warns everyone to be ready for what's coming. He smiles, opens his spellbook, and starts chanting. A glow surrounds them, and different symbols appear, matching their abilities. They suddenly feel a huge surge of strength. Choi says it's more than just a refresh, it makes them feel stronger than ever. Baek, feeling the boost, says he's ready to take on a bunch of ants and win. He suggests they each fight 10 ants, while the cameraman, who has A-rank combat skills, offers to handle 1 or 2 extra if needed. Baek then jokes that he wouldn't rely on a healer, since the buffs they received are more than enough. Grinning, he looks forward to the battle. Meanwhile, Team Delta, made up of Kei and Izawa, rushes to check on Team Charlie after losing contact with them. Izawa can't believe what's going on and questions what Team Charlie is doing. Kei tells him to slow down. When they finally arrive, Izawa notices the many dead ants and wonders if Team Charlie has been stationed there. As Izawa surveys the corpses, he realizes this is evidence of a battle, and it looks like Team Charlie defeated the ants with ease. Kei wonders where Team Charlie has gone, just as Izawa notices Fujishima's eyeglasses. Upon looking farther, Izawa's face falls, and he mutters in disbelief that it is impossible. Kei suddenly stops, grasps his mask, and removes it, vomiting violently. Izawa asks him what the problem is. Kei, still shaking, mentions an awful smell, a rotten stench like nothing he has ever smelled before. As he looks ahead, he realizes the source of the smell is coming from within the trees. His eyes widen in horror, and he screams in fear. Quickly, he generates a massive block of ice with his skill, creating a huge explosion that knocks down several trees. Behind the ice shield he created, Kei's fear is evident in his eyes. Just then, the ice shield with Kei inside cracks under the force of the enemy's strike. Back inside the tunnel, the South Korean hunters have defeated the ants. Baek complains that they have wasted too much time on these ants, but Choi counters, stating it only took 5 minutes to defeat so many ants. They made good progress. In Baek's mind, he reflects on the situation, amazed at how Hae-in seems to have gained new strength as if Byung-gyu had given her wings. He figures she has probably defeated twice as many ants in such a short period as he has. After 15 minutes of progress, they realize they only have about 30 minutes left before returning to their starting point. Dongwook thinks to himself that they must find a way to complete the raid before time runs out. Just then, Hae-in suddenly mentions that she smells something and guesses it is the queen's scent. She believes there are also royal guards nearby. Baek responds that he will check it out. Focusing his eyes on the darker part of the tunnel, he clearly sees the end of the tunnel, and with a beast-like gaze, he exclaims that it is the queen. He adds that the queen is at the very back with 8 guards stationed in front of her. Dongwook turns to Hae-in and asks if she is ready to face the guards. Hae-in confidently replies that she is ready and assures him that he can count on her. At that moment, a massive blaze erupts, and a fire dragon summoned by Choi appears, its fiery eyes glowing like those of a beast. Choi remarks that usually he holds back, but this time, he feels it would be a waste not to use his full power. As an ant attempts to attack him from behind, it is struck by multiple arrows from Taegyu, who calls out that he has got his back. Meanwhile, Baek, feeling the newfound strength, begins to change. His armor cracks, and his appearance shifts into that of a beast. A fierce white aura envelops him as he declares that he does not care if he turns into this hideous form as long as he can exterminate every single one of these damn insects. Baek suddenly crushes 2 ants with his bare hands, his claws slicing through them effortlessly. Hae-in, watching him, realizes for the first time that this is Baek's beast form as he lets go of a powerful roar. Dongwook successfully brings Hae-in to the guards and tells her he will leave them to her. Hearing this, Hae-in quickly reacts by planting her sword into the ground and using a skill called Quake of Provocation. The skill creates a powerful shockwave that forces the guards to attack her. As Dongwook sees their formation break apart, he immediately rushes toward the queen. He knows that the queen must be contained until all the guards are defeated. Standing before the queen with his shield raised and spear in hand, he calls out to get her attention. Meanwhile, the cameraman watches the scene and wonders if the real battle is finally starting. Someone on the radio announces that viewership ratings have already gone past 80%, so the cameraman moves closer for a better angle. Just as he approaches, a hand suddenly pulls him back. It is Byung-gyu. Byung-gyu warns him that this is an S-rank dungeon and no one is responsible for his safety. He tells the cameraman to stay behind because the real fight is about to begin. A green aura surrounds Byung-gyu, and the cameraman watches in awe. He remembers hearing people say that healers are not skilled fighters, but looking at Byung-gyu now, he realizes that is false. Byung-gyu seems stronger than him, even though he is an A-rank hunter. The scene then changes to a house, where an elderly woman tells her husband that the hunters are about to begin the raid. Her husband, uninterested, dismisses her, saying he doesn't care. She insists they should watch, mentioning that the reporters said the hunters will finally defeat the ants this time. The husband replies that those people always say the same thing, and he doesn't believe them anymore. His wife tells him they need to watch, even if it is painful, because the hunters are avenging their only child, who died in the raid. The husband says nothing and continues reading his newspaper, but his wife remains determined. She mutters that her husband is a grumpy old man and keeps watching. On the TV, the news reports that South Korean hunters have entered the Queen's chamber and started their battle. They say the biggest ant ever seen is standing before the hunters. The report mentions that Ma Dongwook is holding off the Queen alone but needs help. His team must defeat the guards first before assisting him. Suddenly, loud cheers come from the neighbors as the news announces that Baek has defeated one of the guards. The elderly woman comments that it is a little scary, but it seems like everyone is cheering for the hunters. The scene shifts to a group of people watching the live broadcast. The news reports that only 4 guards are left. In a restaurant, a young couple watches the raid on a phone and hears that only 3 guards remain. A billboard also displays that only 2 guards are left, and after that, the hunters can finally attack the Queen. The news announces that victory is near. Back at the elderly couple's house, when the husband hears that victory is close, he quickly rushes to the TV. His wife looks at him in surprise. Then, the news reports that all the guards have been defeated. The husband mentions that this is their 4th raid, saying they must win this time and expressing his hope to his wife. His eyes shine with excitement. The news then announces that the only thing left to defeat is the Queen Ant. Once she is gone, the hunters can wipe out the rest of the ants. At the broadcasting office, the viewership rating reaches 85%, setting a new record. It is also reported that South Korea is about to join the list of countries that have cleared an S-rank gate, a list that currently includes the United States, China, Russia, and France. In the next scene, the S-rank hunters face the Queen. Dongwook orders them to attack. Lim Tae-gyu shoots arrows at the Queen's head, while Baek says a queen without guards is weak and slashes at her foot. The Queen's eyes glow before she spits out a corrosive liquid, hitting Dongwook and Baek. Byung-gyu quickly heals them, leaving them unharmed. Smiling, Byung-gyu jokes that he should have been the Queen's target. The Queen then charges at him, but Dongwook blocks her with his shield, refusing to let her harm their healer. Jong-in tells everyone to step back as he casts a powerful fire spell, engulfing the Queen in flames. He then unleashes an even stronger burst of fire, causing a huge explosion. Watching the Queen struggle, Baek, based on his experience, believes she is about to die, and that their victory is near. But suddenly, the Queen lets out a loud roar, creating a shockwave. Baek senses something is wrong. He realizes she might be calling for help. The scene shifts to Sugimoto, who tells Ryuji in shock that the ants are retreating into the tunnels and that the jamming signals are no longer working. Ryuji, stunned, watches the ants retreat without understanding why. Back inside, Hye-in lands the final blow, cutting off the queen's head. She looks around, asking if it is over. Tae-gyu confirms that they are now the 7th team in the world to clear an S-rank gate. However, Baek still feels uneasy, saying something is off. Dongwook then alerts the group that the ants are swarming toward them and that they must leave immediately. The team is shocked. Hye-in is surprised, while Tae-gyu wonders if the Japanese S-rank hunters failed to hold the ants off even for an hour. Dongwook, unsure, says the association is trying to figure it out. Suddenly, Jong-in notices that the flame prison he set at the entrance has been destroyed. At that moment, they all feel an overwhelming aura that makes it hard to move. A powerful ant, unlike any they have faced before, emerges from the shadows. Baek, shocked, cannot understand how this is possible as he stares at the black ant with red eyes. Then, the ant lets out a terrifying roar, creating a massive shockwave felt across the island. Baek is frozen, stunned by its power, questioning how a creature could be this strong. Hye-in drops to her knees, covering her nose as a strong, dark energy fills the air. She can't believe such a terrifying force exists. Fear is clear on her face. She realizes this is no ordinary monster. Even its footsteps make them shiver. Dongwook knows they have no time to waste, and thinks they must defeat it quickly. As the ant moves, it walks past Dongwook, but as it gets closer, he feels an overwhelming pressure, as if his bones are being crushed. The ant heads straight to the queen's lifeless body and stops in front of it, staring. The hunters suddenly feel a heavy sense of dread in their chests. Then, the ant opens its claws and lets out a deafening roar. The force of the roar creates a shockwave, making the hunters collapse under its energy. A dark red aura surrounds the ant, and it locks eyes on Hye-in, who struggles to stand under its powerful presence. In an instant, the ant appears behind Hye-in, catching her off guard. Before she can react, it punches her hard in the side. The impact makes her cough up blood and crash into the tunnel wall. Dongwook yells her name in panic, but before he can do anything, the ant is already in front of him. With one powerful punch, it shatters his shield. Dongwook tries to strike it with his sword, but the ant easily grabs him and slashes through his arm. Blood sprays as its claws cut deep. The ant then turns to Baek and slashes him, taking him down instantly. Jong-in tries to cast a spell, but before he can finish, the ant slashes him across the body, defeating him in one swift attack. Meanwhile, Tae-gyu, from a distance, launches magic arrows, believing he has a clear shot. He is confident that he won't miss this time. However, to his shock, the ant effortlessly grabs his arrow in mid-flight. The ant then crushes the arrow with its claw. In a split second, it delivers a crushing punch to Tae-gyu, sending him flying. Dongwook, still recovering from the ant's earlier attack, manages to launch an attack at the creature, causing it to retreat. Dongwook acknowledges that his arm may have been cut off, but he has Byung-gyu by his side. It becomes clear that Dongwook's arm has fully healed. Meanwhile, Byung-gyu uses a skill called Disguise, a self-defense technique similar to camouflage, which conceals all traces of his presence. In Byung-gyu's mind, the only downside is that the user cannot move, but it's still a handy skill to have as a healer. Even though the ant wants to finish him off, it cannot locate him. He also thinks that as long as he's there to heal his teammates, they won't be easily defeated. Dongwook lunges with a punch, but the ant easily evades the blow. It then seizes Dongwook's foot and swings him around multiple times like some toy. Dongwook struggles, his body bruised and battered. From a concealed location, Byung-gyu, employing his disguise skill, heals Dongwook. Despite this intervention, the ant's gaze suddenly shifts toward Byung-gyu. A wave of fear washes over the healer, but he reassures himself that his disguise is still active and that the ant couldn't possibly know his location. Yet, the creature remains focused on him. Just then, Baek desperately calls out Byung-gyu's name, knowing the ant has already located his position and that he is in danger. Baek looks up just in time to feel something pierce his back. The ant's claw has impaled him. His grip on the book he is holding loosens, and he stares, stunned, as the claw tears through his body. Baek, helpless, can only watch in horror as Byung-gyu falls, unable to move. The ant stabs Byung-gyu. As it stands behind him, Byung-gyu calls out to Baek and desperately tells him to run. Baek watches in horror as the ant suddenly devours Byung-gyu's head right in front of everyone. The hunters are frozen in shock. Filled with rage, Baek attacks the ant, but it easily stops him, grabbing his neck and lifting him off the ground. As Baek struggles to break free, he hears a voice telling him to run. Looking at the ant's face, he hears Byung-gyu's voice repeating the warning. Unable to do anything, Baek curses at the ant. Suddenly, the ant speaks, calling the hunters weak. It acknowledges that their queen has been defeated, but says that killing all their soldiers is not enough. As it talks, Baek's mind is flooded with memories of Byung-gyu. It is then explained that by eating its prey, the Eni not only gains their strength, but also knowledge. Then, it asks who their king is. Baek, still struggling to breathe, doesn't understand what the ant means by king. The ant then reveals that Hai-in has also been defeated, and that Jong-in is badly injured. Meanwhile, the cameraman is so terrified that he can barely stand. Suddenly, the ant stops and turns toward the tunnel's exit, sensing a strong presence outside. In an instant, it flies toward the exit, releasing Baek from its grip. Baek crashes to the ground, barely able to move. Struggling to catch his breath, he thinks that the strong presence must be Ryuji. He realizes they can't afford to stay. They need to leave before the ant returns. His thoughts are interrupted when he sees countless ants approaching. Outside the tunnel, Ryuji, along with Ishida and Hoshino, are on their way to meet their teammates. Ishida comments that something feels wrong, as they have lost contact with Team Charlie and now Team Delta. Ryuji suggests there might be a signal issue but assures them they should still be within range. He then contacts Team Bravo, and Tawata answers, confirming they are safe. Ryuji asks if they have also lost contact with Team Delta and Charlie. Tawata confirms that the only communication they have is from Team Alpha. Tawata asks if they should check on the missing teams, but Ryuji says they are already handling it and need to finish their task at the rendezvous point. Tawata acknowledges and confirms the message. Suddenly, Ryuji gets a call. There, a man introduces himself as Matsumoto. Ryuji recognizes the voice and acknowledges him. Meanwhile, on a ship near China, a crew member and the captain discuss the situation. The crew member notes that South Korea is taking on a dangerous mission and doubts the ants will fly all the way to China. The captain comments that Japan is helping South Korea, meaning Ryuji is trying hard to become a national hunter. The crew member agrees, noting that all national-level hunters have cleared an S-rank gate before, but Ryuji has yet to do so despite his achievements. The captain then wonders about something, but when the crew member asks what he means, he doesn't explain. Instead, he says it just seems like the perfect excuse. He then remarks that Ryuji still has a long way to go. As he puts on his cap, the crew member asks if that is his honest opinion. The captain responds that if the crew member had seen Liu Jigang fight, he would understand. The crew member laughs, saying the captain has become a fan of Liu Jigang after just one fight. The captain agrees, and then adds that, in any case, this raid will likely bring disaster to one of the two countries. Back at Team Alpha's location, Ryuji and his team arrive where Team Delta and Charlie were supposed to be. Ryuji is shocked by what he sees: the lifeless bodies of their fellow Japanese hunters. On the phone, Matsumoto asks what has happened, but Ryuji cannot find the words to reply. Ishida and Hoshino look shocked, unable to believe their fellow hunters are dead. After a moment, Ryuji speaks and tells Matsumoto that they have found some of their hunters dead. Matsumoto coldly responds that they took unnecessary losses and questions why they chose to fight the mutant ants if they wanted to avoid this. Ryuji confirms their decision and reassures him that it's nothing to worry about, saying it just means those hunters were weak. Matsumoto's tone stays cold, as he remarks that as long as Ryuji is alive, losing a few others doesn't matter. Ryuji agrees without hesitation. Matsumoto then asks if South Korea is currently fighting the Queen. Ryuji confirms, explaining that they had signal issues earlier and that the ants have returned to the Queen's location. While he worries there could be more surprises, he says everything seems under control for now. Matsumoto then asks about the South Korean team's chances of survival. Ryuji briefly thinks of Jinwoo, who didn't join the raid, before answering that based on his experience, the South Korean hunters have a 0% chance of survival. Matsumoto is pleased and adds that the Japanese hunters tried to make the Jeju Island raid a success, but they had to retreat when all the South Korean hunters were defeated. He comments that Ryuji's attempt to become a national hunter failed and smirks, saying the media will love this story. Still, he says their main goal was achieved: the destruction of South Korea's S-rank hunters. Matsumoto then orders Ryuji to leave, and Ryuji acknowledges the command, telling his team they are pulling out. His companions agree. deciding to return for the bodies later. Before Ryuji can say more, an attack suddenly strikes them. Ishida's head is cut off in an instant. Ryuji barely blocks the next strike with his sword. Hoshino screams Ishida's name in shock as she sees the brutal attack. Ryuji, now determined, tells Hoshino that he will take care of this. He realizes these aren't normal ants and quickly orders Hoshino to go find Bravo Team. Hoshino hesitates, but before she can reply, Ryuji cuts her off, saying if the enemy is strong, she will only be in the way. A powerful aura surrounds Ryuji as he recognizes the threat before him. The ant looks at Ryuji and asks if he is the king. It stands tall, holding Ishida's severed head, with a dark red aura around it. Ryuji is shocked. He has never met an ant that can talk. With a smirk, he confirms the question and raises his sword. His energy surges as he prepares for battle. Suddenly, the ant spreads its claws and roars loudly. Ryuji is stunned, confused by the ant's immense power. He remembers feeling something similar before, and Jinwoo's face flashes in his mind. At that moment, his sword breaks, and Ishida's head falls to the ground. In an instant, Japan's strongest hunter is defeated. Meanwhile, in the tunnel, the South Korean S-rank hunters are surrounded by countless ants. The only thing protecting them is Jong-in's fire magic. They are injured and trapped, barely holding on. Baek asks Jong-in if he can make his flames stronger. Jong-in replies that doing so will burn up all the oxygen in the tunnel. Baek reflects that they are all badly wounded and that Byung-gyu has been healing them. But it's not enough. Jong-in is their last hope. His fire might be enough to stop the ants. His flames continue burning through the enemy, but some ants still manage to get dangerously close. Baek wonders if this is the end for them. Suddenly, a shadow rises from the ground and stops two ants just before they reach them. Baek is shocked and confused, wondering who this black soldier is that just appeared to help them. Soon after, Jinwoo appears in the city. He speaks a single word, exchange, and the battle shifts once again.